I'm just a Michigan-made girl who survived major trauma after major trauma. I moved all over the country in the United States, north, south, east, and west. But it wasn't until I found myself wanting to end my life right smack in the middle of the country that I realized I could no longer run from the pain of my past. I needed to heal it so I could have the future I deserved and longed for. Now I speak on multiple stages and pages about how to turn your tragedies into your triumphs. Here I have fantastic specialists and guests to help me on that journey, to help people not only around the country, but now around the globe. I'm a speaker, podcaster, coach, and author, but most of all, I am now a victor in my life. And now my mission is to help you find the victor in you.
Welcome to MultiformPTSD. Here's your host, Tracy Lowry.
I am so thrilled to welcome today's guest on this very special episode of MultiformPTSD. When I decided to include special episodes to gain excitement about my first published workbook, Hail to the Victor in You, I knew this had to be one of them. Tim Beisiegel is a fellow podcaster and great friend of mine. He also has a passion for advocating and supporting mental wellness and the journey to healing. Today, he speaks with us about his journey to healing. Today, he speaks with us about his past traumas and his rocky road to recovery. Among other tragedies, his daughter spent months in a hospital due to a disease that affected her central nervous system and will for the rest of her life. Like many of us, he didn't give his own experience through that time enough respect to realize that he needed help to heal from such a scary time in his life. Join us on his journey to living his best life. How did Tim overcome his fear, pain, and survivor's guilt? When did Tim say it's time to find some help from some trained professionals and possibly medication? What does Tim want others to know who might be suffering from a troubled past? What does he want them to know? What can you do right now to start turning your life around, therefore also the lives of your loved ones around you? Let's find out today. Please help me welcome fellow trauma survivor, Michigander, and friend, Mr. Tim Beisiegel. Thank you, Tim, so much for being here on Multiform PTSD. How are you?
I am doing very well. Thank you so much for having me.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being here. I'm glad we were able to work that out. We both had some things kind of come around, but life is life,
yeah, a little
right?
schedule juggling. Exactly. A little scheduling juggling, but we got it.
Where there's a will, there's a way.
Absolutely.
I like it. Sometimes you have to be flexible. So you are obviously a fellow podcaster, and I'm excited to have you here on the show to have look at, and that awesome background there, he did himself, y'all.
Woo-woo.
That is what he does in his spare time, right? Or maybe it's the other way around.
Yeah, that's the day job.
There you go. Does a beautiful job. I meant to mention it actually earlier before you told me that's what you actually did. I was gonna say, hey, who did that? But you did. So you have a couple podcasts, I see.
Yes, I do.
And they're very different. So we've got
extremely.
Focus on Forward, which we'll talk about that here in a minute. And we also have, what's it, Funny Science Fiction podcast?
Yeah, the Funny Science Fiction podcast. So yeah, completely different lanes.
Yes, very. So quickly, kind of explain to me, how did you get into both of those very different lanes?
Well, they both stem from Focused on Forward. Focused on Forward is my baby. That's where I started. And that's, where everything began for me. I've been an old school nerd since, way back when. If you listen to Funny Science Fiction, you'll hear me say this when I talk about Star Wars, that it's like my marriage. It's there for me in sickness and in health, and good times and bad. I always have Star Wars in my life somewhere, somehow. So anyway, I'd gotten going on Focus on Forward, and I was really enjoying doing that. And I was an admin. I still am an admin on our Facebook group called Funny Science Fiction.
Okay.
And the page creator is an author. His name is Drayton Allen, and Drayton wrote a book called The Custodians of the Cosmos. It's based loosely on Star Trek. I have to say loosely because we don't want the lawyers coming in down too heavily. But anyway, It's all about a guy who wanted to be in Star Trek in the Federation, didn't make it, couldn't hack it, he washed out. He joined on as a janitor. And so the running joke throughout the book is that he boldly went to go clean up after those who boldly just went. So yeah, to boldly go to clean up after those who boldly just went. That's the joke.
Wow.
So,
that's actually
yeah,
deep though.
Yeah. And so I interviewed the page founder, Drayton. I interviewed his son, Josh, on Focused on Forward because his daughter was born premature. They spent 3 months, I think it's either 3 or 4 months. I'd have to go back and listen to the episode again. In the NICU with her. She was like a pound, 15 ounce, very micro preemie. And so they spent a lot of time in the NICU with her and all these things. So I interviewed him. And then, at the same time being an admin on the Funny Science Fiction page. And Drayton listened to it and he was like, we should start a podcast for our group. And at the time we had about 40,000 members in the group. Right now, our Facebook group is over 110,000 members. And so it keeps growing and growing. And so eventually we went and said, you know what, let's do it. Let's make the podcast. And again, my running joke for that was, I got the mic, I got the headphones, let's do this. So yeah, and I'm a nerd, so
I love it. Is it kid appropriate?
Yes. Yeah, we strive very, very much to be family friendly, and we remind people when they come on that we want it to be a family friendly, PG rated. Cool. We don't talk about religion or politics. We don't talk about adult themes. Mm-hmm. And I've had people go, well, there's no fun in it if you can't. There's a lot of fun. We try to keep swearing out. We want everybody to be able to listen and have fun. Mm-hmm. Like if you listen to a Star Wars movie or a Star Trek movie, it's pretty mild as far as language and themes and things like that. And people still love those.
Right.
So,
yep. A lot of action and even a little humor in there at times. Yeah. My son loves Star Wars and everything that has to do with it. So actually this morning he was coloring Baby Yoda.
Oh, nice. Monday morning, our Funny Science Fiction release will be with the voice actor. Her name is Julie Dolan. She does the voice work on Star Wars as Princess Leia.
Oh, okay.
So
cool.
It'll be episode 23 of Funny Science Fiction.
Okay. For anyone who wants to catch it. Well, let's go ahead. And when I did a little digging, I like to kind of know who I'm talking to before I talk to them.
Sure.
Before I have them on the show. And I saw when you talk about Focus on Forward, that you like to focus on recovery from life situations. And so that obviously, ping, that hit my bell. I was like, all right, that's what we do here. So how do you do that?
Well, we do that we don't ignore the fact that people go through issues in life. That would be silly. Right. We all have things we have to handle. We all have things we have to endure. We go through them, but that's not the main focus of the show. We talk about them, So for instance, today's episode that I released for Focused on Forward was with a gentleman named Dylan Sessler. And that episode is entitled Defying the Darkness. And it's all about his father who committed suicide when he was 6 years old, how that affected him and how that in time put suicidal ideations into his own mind and how he's fought that his entire life. But he's an extremely positive person, even though he's dealing with that demon, that's shoved into the back of his brain and what he's dealing with there. I find it extremely positive to hear him talk about how the shameless plug I use throughout my entire show is how he's focused on forward, because it's so important that you acknowledge there's an issue, but you don't let it take ownership of you.
Yes.
And he is moving forward with it. And he's allowing life to happen outside of this little bubble that basically life's crapped on him with, right. So that's what we talk about. We talk about, where was the time where you realize that, okay, I'm at a point now where I have to deal with this. I have to move forward. And what did you do to move forward? What was the step that you took? For some, it was talking to someone they trusted, whether that was mother, father, sister, brother, priest, whatever it may be. For some, it was going and seeking professional counseling and help and things along those lines. For some, it was just getting out of the hospital. Whatever it was, there was a positive step forward in the right direction, and then how they continued on. Mm-hmm. And then we talk about different things in their life that they're doing to help continue that positive motion, that positive, that forward progress.
Perfect. That's what
Oh,
it's all
thank you.
about, because like you said, everyone has those times. Everyone goes through tough times and struggles,
Hmm.
and some are harder than others. But I also feel like maybe something that you went through, I would look at it and go, that wouldn't be as hard on me, but I might have done the same thing. And you might look at me and go, that wouldn't do the same thing. So it's so great to bring forth that all of the different stories, because then you're going to hit
Hmm.
everyone differently, and someone's going to go, oh yeah, I can see that. Or what I've learned is, when we are sharing other people's stories, including our own, we can actually help people see maybe why those things would be so hurtful. And
Right.
sometimes if maybe someone doesn't understand the whole suicidal ideation and why would someone go there, and once they hear someone's story and talk about how they got there, why they got there, and the struggle of getting out, it can bring so much awareness for
Yes.
others to be like, oh, like, okay, I can see that now. Whereas before they just
Right.
never experienced it or knew anyone. And so it's hard for them to do it. So I think awareness and advocacy is huge. And so I applaud you for your part in that. I
Oh,
really,
thank
really
you.
do.
And too, and another thing, Tracy, that I tell people is that it's not just the fact that somebody has gone through this issue, and maybe it's not an issue that you're dealing with. So we've talked about everything from children in the NICU to loss of a child and death. Whether it was an infant or older. We've talked about addictions, drug addiction, alcohol addiction. We've talked about loss of family members through cancer and other things, a great variety of things that
Mhm.
we've covered.
Right.
But the thing is, so I'm not an alcoholic. I'm not a recovering drug addict. I haven't lost anybody in my life due to cancer or things along those lines. So in many ways, I've been very lucky
Mhm.
in what I have had to go through in life. But here's the thing: there's a common thread through that runs through every single one of these stories.
Mhm.
There's the desire to want to be better than what we are. There's the desire to have something nicer, better. I almost said gooder. I guess I did say gooder. Uh, but something nicer and better than what we have currently.
Mhm.
And the thing is and I tell people this, and kind of half joking, kind of half serious. This podcast is the cheapest form of therapy I've ever had, because
Isn't that the
whereas
truth?
it is really, because I'll talk to people and they'll tell me their stories. And now when I have people on my show, it's an audio only podcast, but which is good, because the audience at home, if they're listening, they can't see me with my head down jotting down notes of things that I'm going to try and emulate that this person's doing.
Right.
Because there are things that I take from each and every episode where somebody has fought this disease, or they've fought this addiction, or whatever. But there's something positive that you can take from every single episode that can affect your life in a positive way as well. So
Mhm.
you don't have to be an addiction survivor. You don't have to be a trauma survivor. You can listen to these stories for the positivity of what these people are doing with their lives and how they're doing it with their lives to gain something positive for yourself.
Beautiful. And I think most people kind of appreciate the Cinderella stories, right? The stories of
Oh,
the
sure.
comeback kid and all of those things. I don't know if you're a Tom Brady fan. I'm a huge one, but um I was
Go
a
blue.
yes, yes, exactly. I forgot I was talking to a fellow Michigander, but I
Like
like
here.
to say, yeah. Oh, see, I was up here.
There you
Oops,
go.
flip it around. I was in the up north, but I like to say I was a Tom Brady fan before being a Tom Brady fan was cool.
Was cool.
Cause yeah,
Yeah, we're
but
OG.
my favorite part of him is actually, you go over what he did from when he entered the combine and into the draft. No one really gave him much of a shot. He was almost not drafted at all. It was,
Wow.
bottom of the
So
sixth
very
round,
sixth
and
round, 199th pick.
199. Yep. Yep. And look what he's done now. Now, in my opinion, I do think he is the GOAT. take it for what it's
sure.
worth. I don't want to, have anyone shut me off now because of that. But anyone who listens to me knows that's how I feel. But arguably, he went from, the things they said about him in the combine were not positive. There were some, pretty negative
Right.
runs on
By
him.
the reviews that he got, he should have never been drafted.
Exactly.
Not even in the 6th round.
Right.
Yeah. All the experts all said that he wasn't worth carrying a clipboard.
Right. Yeah. And look at him now. So I love those kind of stories. I love the comeback kid, the one that comes from behind and
Sure.
makes something of themselves. And not only that, by sharing the stories like you do and like I do sometimes, I think not only is it to help those who are maybe in the middle of their dark moments or trying to get out of their dark moments, if they implement the things in which our guests talk about or we talk about, we can even prevent maybe that downfall when life gets them hard. Because if they start doing those things now,
right,
then it will help them not
Yeah.
get as far down. So it's preventative as well, which is, if you can, obviously the better way to go, but have to kind of catch everyone where they're at. And that's where we focus on here is, well, we meet you where you are. We help you just level up to whatever that
Right.
means for you, and maintenance and to preserve, make sure things don't
Yes.
happen as bad as they could for some of these others. So awesome.
Agreed.
Do you mentioned that you hadn't lost anyone from cancer and addiction and things like that. Do you have a personal recovery story that you had to recover from yourself that got you into this? Or is it completely just liking to share everyone else's stories?
Hey there, just wanted to interrupt real quick and let you know that I too, at one time felt that there was no hope for me, that there was no future for me, therefore there was no reason to go on, and I had the idea of ending my life. I've come a long way since then, and I discovered a 12-step method to help people recover from turning their tragedy into triumphs as well. Please visit tracylowry.com and order your workbook, Hail to the Victor in You, written by me, yours truly, Tracy Lowry. Also a great gift and purchase for your clients, your friends, your loved one, and yourself. Anyone who may be struggling with any past traumas or even current traumas. This is the workbook for you. We dig right to the core issues and help you get through them so you can find the victor that does exist in you. Let's help you find it. Order yours today.
No, actually, I do, and it's kind of a two-parter. But I'll try and give cliff notes on it. It's a little long, but so I can look at this from a couple different ways. Actually, it's a three-parter. So my mother and my natural father were divorced when I was 6. I went through a lot of the typical children abandonment issues through divorce. I took it very personally, not understanding that my natural father had other children from another marriage. Because when you're little, they're just your brothers and sisters. And my natural father picked up and moved out to California with all the rest of my brothers and sisters. And so that caused me to feel be unwanted. And that I thought I couldn't understand why he didn't want me and why he didn't love me like he loved my brothers and sisters, because clearly he took them with him and left me here.
Right.
And so that led to a lot of self-esteem issues and a lot of, like I said, a lot of abandonment issues, things like that. Things that I probably should have addressed in my teen years, I didn't until I was in my 40s.
Right.
And so that's the unfortunate side of that. Fast forward to my 30s, I developed a heart issue and something called atrial fibrillation, which causes the heart to jump out of sinus rhythm. And I apparently had a very excessive and progressive case. I went from working 60 to 80 hours a week to not being able to walk from one side of my house to the other without feeling like I was running a marathon. And at the last year of dealing with my atrial fibrillation, I had to have my heart chemically stopped and restarted 6 times. And then finally had an ablation surgery. And coming out of that, though, I had to stop working. I couldn't work because I had to get on surgery schedule. I had to do all the stuff, the pre-surgery stuff so I could be cleared for a heart surgery, and so going through all these things, I was no longer working. And it's funny because of the society that we live in the area that we live in. As a man, you're expected to be the breadwinner. You're expected to be, oh, I'm a man. I gotta be a man. I gotta take care of my family. not realizing that there's other ways that you take care of your family, and that you can deal with it, be a provider without, it's not just tied to a paycheck. And I hate that,
Right.
that in our society, it's so tied to being, what do you bring home and what are you giving? Oh, you're just, there are other ways to be a provider for your family. And I want more men to realize that,
Absolutely.
that it's not just tied to their paycheck. But that's where my mind went, is that I'm not a provider. And so they had, again, an inrush of these feelings of self-doubt and worthlessness, and some of these other things. And so I had to deal with all of that. And then fast forward a few more years, 2019, March 31st of 2019, we took my daughter Kendall, at the time she was 12 at the time. We took her to the local children's hospital thinking that she had the flu. Come to find out, she had a condition called Guillain-Barré syndrome. It's something that I had never heard of, didn't know what it was. And the way that the doctor introduced it to me, he was a great guy, nice guy. He needs to learn how to introduce his diseases, though, because as the way he put it was, it was great, but it's just his introduction, the way he introduced it was, he says, well, we can take MS off the table. And I went, I'm sorry, when was MS on the table?
Right.
Because we got there and he's like, this isn't the flu. I don't know what it is, but it's not the flu. And he comes back 20 minutes later and he's like, well, we can take MS off the table. So as a parent who thinks that you're taking your child there for the flu, for them to come back with that was gut punch number one.
Right.
And then to be told a few minutes later that it was definitely Guillain-Barré syndrome, and then trying to figure out what Guillain-Barré syndrome was.
Right.
And so for those playing the home version of this game, Guillain-Barré syndrome is something that attacks the central nervous system, and it attacks people differently. Now, for my daughter, it attacked her from the neck down, and she was paralyzed from the neck down. We spent 97 days in the hospital. 33 of them were in the ICU. We almost lost her twice because of this. She started getting a lung infection and had to have an emergency lung surgery and drainage. Right now, she functions on about 1.5 lungs. And she was on a breathing tube. She was on a feeding tube. And for a parent, one of the worst things that, in my opinion, that you will ever go through as a parent is being stuck in a hospital room with your child sick and not being able to do anything. The feeling of helplessness that washes over you every time something comes up, because there is literally nothing I could do other than hold her hand that she couldn't feel me touching and tell her that I loved her and that I wanted her to be better. And I was doing everything I could to help her. And that and the other thing you come to a realization of is that doctors in the children's ICU units, the doctors and nurses there, I don't care how much they're getting paid, it isn't enough. It truly is not even close to enough. Because what they're seeing and what they're dealing with on a day-to-day basis, I wouldn't make it. I know I wouldn't make it. I'd crumble the first day. I watched as a doctor, I was coming back into the ICU area from downstairs getting a snack. I had seen the helicopter land on the roof. And as I came in, there was the gurney strapped there and everything from the helicopter, the air med. I watched as a doctor had to tell this mother that her baby was lost. Absolutely heart-wrenching. And I watched that doctor, after I went into my bathroom in my room for my daughter and ugly cried in my bathroom because I couldn't imagine the heartbreak that those people were going through. I came back out and watched this doctor have to go sit. He sat down at his desk and took his little beanie cap off and just sat down and just cried. And I can't imagine these guys having to do that each and every day. Not that they lose a child each and every day, but to watch them do those things. And so, I mean, we watched all of this. And like I said, it was 97 days in the hospital, 33 in the ICU. And when we came out, neither my wife nor I were fully cognizant of the fact that we were suffering from a form of hospitalization PTSD. What nailed it for us, though, is when we went back for one of our first follow-up visits. Kendall was walking with a walker at the moment. And we decided that we were going to go, we had bought some gifts for the doctors and nurses on the ICU floor, just as a thank you. We bought, they were all drinking from those little tumbler glasses with the straws and everything. So we bought them some of those, and you can't quite see it, but my shirt says KP beats GB. It's a design that I made while we were in the hospital.
Oh.
And so we put that on the cups and we gave it to all the doctors and nurses. I couldn't go in the hospital. I locked up. I sat in the car and cried and just cried and cried. I physically could not walk in the hospital. And that's when I started realizing something's wrong. I thought I was okay.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that, oh, we're home now. Things are better. Things are okay. She's always going to have Guillain-Barré. It's that piece of luggage that you can't get rid of. It's always stuck with you. She's always going to have some level of that she's going to have to deal with this. She's about 85% recovered, and the doctor thinks that that's probably her plateau. But I'll take it. I'll take 85%. Based on where we were at, I'll take this every day. But I knew then something clearly 100% was wrong, and I needed to talk to somebody. And so that's where I decided that we found a counselor, and I started going to counseling and therapy. And it's funny because the person who suggested that I go to counseling was actually my daughter's rehabilitative doctor. After we went to one of their visits, we got done. He asked everybody else to leave the room except for me. And I was like, oh boy, here we go. And he just asked me how I was doing, if I was going to counseling. And I said, no, why would I? He said, why would you not? You've been through trauma.
Right.
Your daughter may have gone through physical trauma and mental trauma from being there. He said, but you went through mental and emotional trauma as a parent. Why aren't you taking care of yourself? You can't take care of her unless you take care of yourself. And I went, yeah, but I don't want to go lay on a couch, because, that's the first thing anybody thinks about counseling. The first thing they think about is that, oh man, I got to go on the couch and hug the pillow and lay there and talk about why I didn't get the right bike when I was 12. And, and that's not what counseling is.
Right.
And I kind of made that joke to him, and he just said, yeah, you're probably not going to talk much about your childhood. Of course, he didn't know about my childhood and where a lot of my issues stemmed from. But yeah, we definitely talked about my childhood. That was, matter of fact, that was number one with a bullet, the first meeting with the counselor.
Yeah.
There were things that had to be addressed. So, we addressed them.
Absolutely.
All those other things led up to going to counseling and dealing with it. I like to say I am nicely medicated now. Mm-hmm. It's helpful. Science is a good thing. For any guys that are listening, there's no shame in counseling. Please go talk to someone.
Thank you.
It's a massive need for men to recognize that you're not losing your man card because you go and talk to somebody about the things that you're feeling. Mm-hmm. And there's no shame in being medicated. Right. Sometimes, you know what? We're all imperfect. We all have little idiosyncrasies that we're trying to deal with. And if you can have a better day because you took a pill in the morning, then by golly, take that pill and have the better day and find a way to help yourself be happy to some extent. Whatever extent that you're going to be able to chemically balance yourself with something that the doctor can provide you with. Between that and counseling, if that's what you need to do, please, 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 please don't hesitate. Go talk to somebody now. It's more important than, that's the thing. It's just that so many people overlook it. They don't think that it's important because men have been trained that, in order to be a man, you keep your thoughts and your feelings to yourself. Mm-hmm. We joke about it now, but one of the things I used to tell my boys when they were growing up, and I feel kind of bad for having done it. Now, it's funny because none of us are hockey players, but, I used to tell them all, suck it up. You're a hockey player, because if a hockey player gets hurt, he's out for his next shift. 40 seconds later, he's figuring out a way to skate, with that broken pinky or that tooth that just got knocked out of his mouth. On the one hand, I felt like, oh, maybe I'm training my boys how to be tough, and we're going to be tough and we're going to push forward. But was it that, or was I teaching them how to suck it up and not tell anybody about it? So I'm hoping that it was more of the first that I taught them how to be tough and how to move forward and handle things responsibly. But I guess time will tell.
Well, and I think both lessons are very crucial, though. I think it is important this is how I kind of talk about it. When something bad happens or we have bad feelings, a lot of times the positive mentality groups and the inspirational people will say, oh, just think positive and blah, blah, blah. It just doesn't work out that way.
No, I wish it did. That'd be easiest.
No kidding.
Well, stop feeling that way.
Yeah, just be happy.
Just be happy.
Yeah,
By golly, that's what I missed.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, why didn't I think of that?
Right.
I think it kind of misses the mark a little bit. I think pain, whether it be emotional or physical, is always a sign that something needs fixed. Something is wrong and it needs fixed. And if it's emotional,
Agreed.
I truly feel that those emotions deserve a voice. They deserve to be heard. They need to be heard. But then you have to move forward from it. You can't just unpack and stay there in those negative feelings, feel it out, and then continue to, like you would probably say, focus on moving forward. But there needs to
Right.
be kind of that working through process, which counseling and
Right.
medication, like you eloquently spoke of, can help in doing that. And if someone has high blood pressure, no one looks at them funny for taking blood pressure meds. In fact, if they didn't
Right.
take them, then it's, what the heck are you doing? Like, you're just waiting for a heart attack.
Why aren't you taking care of yourself?
Exactly. So why is there a stigma for another chemical imbalance in our brains to take medication for that? I was the same way. I fought medication for a really long time. And then it came down to the point where I was very heavily medicated for a while, because that's what needed to be for a little bit. And now I am very proud to say I'm only somewhat medicated. I've moved away from a lot of it. So it doesn't even have to be forever that you're on medication.
No, it doesn't need to be permanent.
No, it's
one
just
of the things
to get
is
you
that,
through.
Yeah, because one of the things about going to counseling is that counseling should never, and I shouldn't say should, but for the most part is not intended to be a lifelong thing. There are some people who will probably have to go through counseling in some form or a variety because of their level of trauma. So I need to say that first and foremost. But what counseling helps you do is help. No, there's not. If that's what you need, then please, by all means, take it. Mm-hmm. Take the help. Take the assistance. Many times in basketball, a player or the hockey, in the good old hockey game, the person who scores doesn't score on their own. They get an assist. Somebody else passes them the ball. Somebody else passes them the puck so that they're able to score and they're able to move forward. Right. So there's nothing wrong with taking that assist, that handoff from somebody else to help you get where you need to go. But counseling for some people may not be a lifelong thing. Sometimes you get shown different methods of being able to think and redirect your thoughts. And one of the greatest things that my counselor taught me was I had to learn what she called stop therapy. When the negative thoughts would start creeping in, how to tell myself to stop and focus on things that were positive. Right. Because that's not what I was doing. I was focusing on all these negative things. Mm-hmm. And so there's nothing wrong with going to counseling, but also at a certain point, you also have to acknowledge that you're getting training when you're going to counseling. You get trained how to go do a job and how to do all these things. We have to have training with our brains, how to redirect things, how to look at things differently, because sometimes in life, man, we're getting hit from every angle possible, especially over this last year and a half with COVID and everything that everybody's had to deal with. Right. There's been a lot of mental and emotional trauma that people have had to deal with over this time. So why not get the help? Why not?
Absolutely. And, you talked about the person who scores, often it's an assist or someone blocks for them, but that whole team, nobody goes out on there and plays a game without a coach that taught them how to play it even better than they already knew. Just because Michael Jordan, in my opinion, arguably the best basketball player there ever was. And I'm not a Michael Jordan fan. I'm just going to put that out there. Not a huge Michael Jordan fan.
Me either.
But I can appreciate that he is probably the best there ever is and ever was. But he had coaches. I mean, even the best of the best still need kind of that outside perspective of sometimes when you're playing a sport. I was a figure skater growing up and a basketball player. There were times I didn't know what I was doing wrong, but my coach was like, hey, turn your toe out, 2 degrees, and that's going to work out better for you. I didn't know that on my own. So, and there's no shame in that. No one looks at these professional athletes who are better than 90% of the country and goes, oh, but they got a coach. What are they doing? No one does that.
One of the other things I say too about that analogy is that you have to remember that just because you have a coach doesn't mean that's the coach you have to stick with. How many coaches did Michael Jordan have before he got to Phil Jackson? Okay. Who was the guy that they tied in right with. I got lucky, when my counselor, her name is Julie. Julie is amazing. She's very sweet, very kind, very easy to talk to. And so for me, she was very approachable. And so, I got lucky and I realized that. But there are some people, they go to the counselor. If it's not a good mix, you don't mesh well, there's nothing saying that you got to suck it up and suffer through that every week. Because if you can't trust the person that you're talking to, how are you going to share things that are deep and personal to you so that they can help you navigate through these traumas and these issues that you have? Don't feel that once coached, always coached. Know that you can go on to a different coach. Find your Phil Jackson. Okay. There's nothing wrong with that.
I love that. And I've also come to those who go to counseling and their first counselor was one of those that my first counselor was absolutely horrible, wretched, horrible. Flat out looked at me, didn't even hear my story yet. Had no idea why I was there, what I needed, anything, but he proceeded to tell me that he worked with POWs in war. And so there was nothing I could tell him that was going to be as bad as what they went through. So I needed to suck it up and deal with it. And that I was acting like a coward and taking the coward way out.
Did you punch him? You should have.
If I was in a better place, if I was in the state I'm in now, it would have been a
don't recommend physical violence, but I'm just saying.
No. It would have been a very different meeting, but I'm at the lowest of lows at this point.
Sure.
And in my brain, I went click. And I know plenty of others who have had their first experience wasn't so great. And so they go, oh, counseling doesn't work. I went, I tried, they were awful. Counselors are stupid. They don't know what they're doing. So I'm glad that you brought that up because just because the first one doesn't work out for you, unfortunately, there's a lot of frogs out there. And sometimes you got to kiss a lot of them to find your prince. And the same thing happens in counseling. And some of it isn't that they're bad counselors, but you just, like you said, you don't trust them. You don't have a connection where you feel like you can be open and honest and get really deep with them. It's not going to work then either. So you have to look and is it annoying? Yes. Is it the way it should be? No, it stinks, but it is what it is. And you just can't give up on yourself because giving up on yourself, you're also giving up on everyone you love and care about and who loves and cares about you. So you have to take care of yourself in order to take care of everyone else. So it's worth the investment of time to find one that really can do you a lot of good. Because now the team I have now, I love and I wouldn't trade for anything. So it's worth the time.
Agreed. Yeah.
Do you find, I love that you're talking about this, coming from the male's perspective, a lot of the time I feel like it's not always, it can be both sides. I do think that sometimes men are a little more likely to back off on the whole going to get help or talking to a counselor or getting on medication or and I kind of was more this way in the beginning until now, honestly. But it was, I got big shoulders. I'm strong. I can do this. I don't need anyone. I don't need help. I don't need to talk to someone else about my problems. I mean, I can't tell you how many friends that I grew up with don't have a clue what I was going through. Not a clue, because I didn't talk about it. I didn't believe that it was anyone else's business. And what would you say to those men out there coming as a male? You've already kind of brushed on it, but I want you to speak to those right now, just for a moment, to those, especially males, but anyone who just thinks it's not for me. I don't need help.
If you're at a point where somebody's advising you to go get help, you're already at a point where you need it.
Probably past the point, because for someone to actually build up the courage to even say that to someone means they've been thinking about it for a while.
They've been dealing with it for a while. Sure. Right. Absolutely. So so the point, the fact that people are telling you that, hey, maybe you should go talk to somebody, it's their nice way of trying to help you. And they're trying to show you that they care about you. They're trying to show you that they have concern for you and what you're going through. However, for the most part, life has taught men that in order to be men, to be the manly man that we see in the 1950s television shows that everybody seems to have grown up on, that in order to be that, we have to stand on our own 2 feet, that we have to not accept help from other people. And I will tell you right now that couldn't be farther from the truth. There is no shame in going and talking to somebody about the things that are plaguing you and troubling you. It doesn't make you weak. It does not make you less of a man. In fact, in my opinion, it makes you more of a man. It makes you a wonderful human being. The fact that you can be so worried about your own issues and be conscious of these things and cognizant of your own issues, that you're willing and able to go take care of these things for the betterment of the people around you that you love.
Right.
So don't let anybody tell you that these things make you less. If you need counseling, please don't hesitate. Please go talk to your doctor, your personal care physician. They may be able to give you some recommendations to a good counselor. Because that's where we started with me. I talked to my personal doctor. I talked to him, said, okay, doctor, this is what I'm dealing with. This is where I'm at. I need some help. Do you have any suggestions of somebody I could go talk to? He gave me 3 names. I've also known my doctor since my children were very small. My oldest is 22 now. And I went to him and I said, this is what I'm dealing with. This is how I'm feeling. who can I talk to? He gave me 3 names and he said, I think you'll like this one. And that's Julie. That's the person I ended up talking to. Like I said, I know I got lucky. First strike, first swing, hit a home run with Julie. And that may not happen with everybody, but please don't give up on the process. If you care enough about the people around you, you care enough about your own life, what you're doing, what's going on, talk to your doctor, see if medication is needed, or if it's just counseling. You may need one or the other. You might need both. And there's no shame to any of that. Why should there be shame when it's something that can allow you to be happy? Why should there be shame when it's something that can allow your family and friends to be happy with you and to enjoy your company, and you, vice versa, enjoy their company? There should be no shame attached to any of this. So you may have a couple people that come up and tell you that they need you to do this or consider this. If people in your circle are telling you that it's not cool to do this, or you're a wimp for doing this, you need a different circle.
As you were talking about that, that was kind of what was going through my head. If you do have those people who are trying to talk you out of getting help, I have found that usually it's those people who think they are benefiting from you being in the less version of yourself.
Agreed.
And they're not your people.
They're called
leeches. You want to be with people who lift you up and want you to be at your best, have your best interest involved, not what they want you to be.
Sure.
And quite honestly, I think one of the things that we can do besides, getting counseling and medication and help in those ways is, I think, if you are struggling with any kind of emotional traumas or stress or depression or anxiety, one of the first places to look is actually your tribe. In my opinion, they can either bring you up or they can lead you down. And you really need to take an active part in deciding who you're going to spend, because we are the average of the 5 people we're around the most, right? So look at those 5 people. And if they're not lifting you up, they're bringing you down. It's time to reevaluate who your top 5 people or even anyone in your life is.
Right. I equate it to and this also kind of shows my age. But if you remember the days of MySpace, you had your top 8 and you were always vying to get into somebody's top 8. Man, what can I do to provide value to you so I could be in your top 8?
Right.
But the thing is, if you look at life in that regard, if you have your top 8, what are those people doing to provide value for your life, to help you move forward in your life? And then you have to ask yourself, as you're evaluating them to be in your top 8, are you worthy of being in their top 8? And then how do you move forward there as well? What are you providing to them? Because this has to be reciprocal. It has to be a two-way street, or you've lost the truest sense of what a friendship really is, or what a relationship really is.
Right. And any kind of relationship. I think romantic relationships and significant others, I think that plays a huge part in it as well. But even the family members we choose to be around, or our friends or coworkers who we are around more than others. And I mean, I think any kind of relationship needs to be evaluated every so often. But I love that you talk about making sure that you're adding value to them. While I was going through my tough time, I actually started realizing who my true friends were. And then I started to feel bad, because I was like, they're doing so much more for me right now than I can give them. And I felt horrible. I was like, I'm the worst friend ever. And I expressed that to one of my dearest friends. And she said, she goes, Tracy, we have been friends since we were teenagers. You were that person for me when we were kids. I feel like now it's my turn to do it for you. It should be a give and take in any relationship. A lot of people will say every relationship is 50-50, but my dad said once, and it made more sense the older I got, sometimes it's 80-20, and sometimes it's 50-50, sometimes it's 40-60. As long as it can weave and wave on both ends of the spectrum, that's just how relationships are and how they should be. When the other one's down, you have to kind of make up for that slack.
Absolutely.
And as long as it happens the other way, you're good to go.
Yeah, agreed.
Well, it has been a pleasure having you on the show. I will have all of your information in the show notes and throughout the show, but let everyone know kind of what you're up to, how they can get in touch with you, if you would.
Sure. I have a podcast called Focused on Forward. And so you can find me on your favorite podcast destination. The only podcast destination that we're not on currently is Stitcher, because Stitcher and my hosting site don't play well with one another. I'm working on that. So anyway, we are in season 2 right now. Just posted my 10th episode on season 2. So total, I think 40 something episodes, because I arbitrarily started season 2 on January 1st. I'm like, well, yeah, it's a new year. We'll call it a new season. So, but as of late, a lot of the people that I've talked to have to do a lot with mental health awareness, and things like that. The last couple of weeks, we've had some pretty interesting interviews. Talked with a woman named Shannon Wilson a couple of weeks back. She wrote a book called The Littlest Peanut. Her story is about both of her children had to go through the NICU, and her experiences going through that. And this book is written to help parents get through that experience, and it's a beautiful book. So I encourage people everywhere to check out that book very strongly. And you can find me on Facebook. You can find me on Twitter at Podcast FOF, just focused on forward on Instagram and the Facebook. Man, I sound old. And then there's you on the Facebook. And then I also started doing TikTok a little bit ago at _podcast_guy, the podcast guy. And I called myself that on TikTok because I represent 2 podcasts there. So both this and Funny Science Fiction. And you can find Funny Science Fiction on all of those. And Funny Science Fiction, we also have a YouTube channel. Please go like and subscribe. I need the numbers. Shameless plug.
I hear you. Plug away.
So that's right. We'll throw that out wherever I can get it. But yeah, that's where you can find both of my podcasts. And that, of course, is an audio podcast as well. But we do have a video component up on YouTube for you to be able to watch. One of the coolest videos we did on there recently, we spoke with Dan Palvenmeyer, who is the co-creator of Phineas and Ferb. If you ever watched, yeah. And he does his lovely Dr. Doofenshmirtz voice on it, which when he did that on the show, I was like, so.
Like a kid in a candy store, right?
Oh, very much so. I've joked with my co-host, not that I ever expect this ever to happen in a million trillion years, but if I ever get the chance to talk with either Sam Witwer, who plays the voice of Darth Maul and Emperor Palpatine on Star Wars, Clone Wars, and Rebels, or Mark Hamill, I am going to be the world's biggest fanboy, giggling over in the corner, just like, remember that time when you did the thing? Yeah, that'll be me.
You'll have to turn your mic off so you can't hear the
awesome. I'm pretty sure even with my microphone off, it's gonna come through in the video, because I'll just be sitting there like a Cheshire cat the entire time. Just thank you for being here. So
I laugh, but that would be me with like Tom Brady. So, but Tom Brady,
I get it.
Gonna be here, but I try to have a question that I do ask everyone across the board through my season. What would you say to that listener who is sitting there right now, don't know what to do, don't know how to get themselves out of this hole, and not even sure they even want to get out of the hole? What would you say to them in that place that that listener might be in?
Well, if you're sitting there contemplating what you need to do, it means that it's weighing enough on you that this is a conscious thing in your mind. It's taking up space in your head. It's living there rent-free. In order for it to occupy space in your mind and in your life and what you're doing, things need to provide value to you. And worrying about traumas and things that you've gone through, we can't turn it off just by saying, "Oh, I wish I got better. I wish I felt better." We have to take positive steps. So it's a 3-step process, and I'm asking them to identify 3 things. Number 1, identify the issue. Number 2, identify a path to fixing the issue. And then the third part is taking the action. So you identify that you have an issue, whatever it may be. The path out of that issue might be, the first step is just to go talk to somebody, anybody, someone you love, someone you trust, a qualified mental health professional. Let's go with professional, mental health professional, whatever it may be. So you've identified it. You've made a plan of action. Please take the action. Talk to somebody somewhere. Get this off your chest. Get this off your mind. Not going in with the misconception that it's going to fix you, or that having this conversation is going to take all the issue and problem away, because that's just not how life works. But it's a start in the right direction. Please don't undersell the value that you have in this world. You are needed. Everyone is needed. And having all these different people in our life is what helps add to the flavor of what we do and how we do. And you matter to your people, to your tribe, to your family, to the people around you. Entrust with them the same love that they have entrusted in you. Entrust with them the same sense of want that they have entrusted in you, because they are giving you that by telling you, hey, go get help. So if you have someone in your life that's telling you that, either A, start talking to them, or B, ask them for help to get you to the point where you can get to a trusted professional. So don't ever undersell the need to be open and honest with someone that you can trust.
Right. Well, it's been a true pleasure. I'm so glad
I've enjoyed this.
On.
This has been fun.
Yes, great content, great stuff. Follow this guy. This guy's got a little bit of everything for everyone. So go hit him up on social media. I'll have all the information in the show notes. I'll be flashing it.
Cool.
So, great guy. Thank you so much for being here. And I wish you all the best in everything you do.
Oh, thank you, Tracy. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah. You've got me behind you. So anything I can do, let me know.
Sounds good. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Hey, it's Tracy. I'm just here real quick to remind you to subscribe to this podcast wherever you're listening. We're on all major podcast platforms. I appreciate all of those so much as it helps me reach more people. I want to thank all of my guests and helpers behind the scene. I couldn't do it without you. You guys are truly the inspiration that helps me go through this every day. So thank you so much for listening. Make sure you're sharing with your friends, your coworkers, your family, or anyone else you think might be really needing to hear this content on how to heal and overcome from obstacles and tragedies and traumas. That's why we're here, so people can know that they're not alone, get some real good tips on how to better their life and to heal and to really be triumphant in their life and have a life that they can be excited about again. So thanks for being here.